Hello there, we're back in the new year with another round of the Asian Le Mans Series, and Buriram International Circuit plays host for the third round of this race, and all the teams are really excited. They're ready to be picking up the battle from where was left off in Fuji, and of course we are all set for qualifying sessions here today. And just like the last round, we are going to be seeing the GT cars out first, followed by the Le Mans Prototype 2 and Le Mans Prototype 3 cars next. So this is going to be our first look at how the hot weather is going to be affecting the teams, the drivers and the cars also. So I'm sure our commentators have something to say about that. Joining us as usual, Graham Goodwin and Jeevan Salvanathan. Hi guys, how are you guys doing?
Hi Nadia, how are you doing? We're doing fine up here in the commentary box. Myself and Graham Goodwin, as you said, will be talking you through not just qualifying and race day, and what a race day we're going to have tomorrow on Saturday here at the Buriram International Circuit.
We are Children's Day here in Thailand, so families will be out and about with their kids. Something like 100,000 people will be on the property here throughout tomorrow, and we expect the grandstand here to be absolutely packed at the start of the race, Jivan.
It is, of course, the second half of the season. 4 events for the 2018-2019 Asian Le Mans season, and with this third event, stories have been evolving over those first 2 races, and some surprising stories in there as well. We'll be getting to, of course, who is currently set up for the big finale in Sepang, and that's all going to be dependent on what happens here on Saturday.
It's all about those championship battles and subsequently those 4 automatic entries for the 2019 Le Mans 24 Hours that will come with those championship crowns.
That's right. You cannot get them anywhere else. They literally have to be earned right here. And talking about that, of course, the team we have to talk about are United Autosports. They have probably one of the most critical weekends ahead of them because they've been by far the most reliable in the LMP2 class. We'll be going through the LMP3, LMP2AM, and of course GT class as well. But in the LMP2, United Autosports haven't won yet.
No, they've not won. Neither have they yet got an entry for the 2019 Le Mans 24 Hours. That's the critical path they're looking to negotiate. They potentially could win 3 here. LMP2, LMP3, and of course they've got a car in the LMP2 AM class. The one class they've not got a car in is the GT class, of course. We've got 5 cars there. Again, those teams looking to see what they can do about getting an entry for the Le Mans 24 Hours. The one team, though, Jivan, that isn't looking really this year for that is the TF Sport by Red River Sport. The Aston Martin Vantage with Johnny Molam and his 2 customers for Red River Sport. We're going to see Johnny now take us around a hot lap of this Buriram International Circuit right now.
Hello, I'm Johnny Molam and I drive the TF Sport by Red River Sport Aston Martin number 5 car in the Asian Le Mans series, and I'm about to take you around a lap of the Buriram International Circuit in Thailand. We're just coming out of turn 1, very, very flat and featureless on the exit there. It's very, very easy to actually abuse track limits, especially in a GT car. Getting up to about 260 kilometers an hour into 5th, 6th gear down into the hairpin, which is actually turn 3, very heavy on the brakes here. I really like the exit. It opens up a lot. You'd hold the apex curb and then on the exit, open up the steering. Try not to abuse the track limits too much on the exit there, as you notice. And then coming up to the fastest corner of the track, turn 4. It's a lift. In a prototype, it's flat. In a GT car, you have to have a slight lift. Use as much road on the way in. I love this corner. Getting up on the apex slightly. Try not to abuse, again, track limits on the exit. Hard on the brakes, down into 2nd gear. Hold it tight. And then this opens up. You're always fighting for rear grip. Very, very easy to lose the rear of the car all the way through here. You have to hold tight to the left-hand side to position for turn 6. Very fast corner, and then again turn 7, brake, down 1 gear, turn in, take as much apex curb as you can. Again, keep the car just on the track on the exit, and then hard on the brakes, down into 2nd gear, hold it right, seems to go on forever and ever, and then open up the steering, and you're flat here all the way through this series of sweeping corners. Again, back up to about 250 kilometers an hour before you're heavy, down on the brakes, 1st gear, and then really, really trying to not carry too much speed to the apex, but get really early on the throttle. I've actually overshot there slightly on that, and you can see it costs me on the exit. And that is a lap of Buriram International Race Circuit.
Fabulous to hear that fabulous old warhorse doing its thing, Johnny Molam. The car isn't bad either.
Well, the one thing I got from that brilliant lap from Johnny Molam there was a couple of words. One, keep not abusing track limits.
Absolutely,
on
100%.
so many corners.
It is very, very slippy here, and despite the fact this is pancake flat, very challenging, some really tight turns, some very quick turns you could see from Johnny there. See the car's mass just driving it outwards, and that's where you're going to start hearing these calls through qualifying and into the race from Eduardo Freitas and his race control team. We have seen in previous races on the support bill here just how tough that's been to keep the cars on the circuit, and Johnny showing just how much physical effort is involved in wrestling the Aston Martin around this Buriram circuit.
And it's fast as well, 260 kilometers on the straights.
It's 260 kilometers an hour is quick by absolutely by anybody's standards. And I think for me, it's never in sports car racing, never about straight line speed. It is all about putting those laps together, stringing them together so you've got that flow. And what we want to see from the GT cars and the LMP cars is the opportunity for that consistency that's going to bring together those stints. One of those cars that we're actually going to be looking to carry on the momentum they've carried from the first two races are the championship leaders in LMP3.
Into Europol.
It's into Europol, and down in the pit lane at the moment, we've got Nadia, and she's with Kuba Shmosky, who's been pedaling that car for the first 2 4-hour races this season, leads the points.
Yes, exactly. Kubash Moskovsky with me into Europol. So your team has been doing fantastic, quite consistent the past 2 rounds. What is the goal for round 3 here in Buriram?
Well, the goal is always to win, and we will try to extend our championship lead to go into the last round more or less with not so much stress. And yeah, we'll see tomorrow if it will work out or not.
But today it's qualifying sessions. You just told me you're going to be the one getting into the car. And getting pole is nothing new to you. You did it in the first round. Hoping to repeat that again?
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice. The pace looks pretty good. We won the second free practice. And we did some long rounds yesterday. And we are pretty consistent. So even if we don't get a pole position, I think our race pace is pretty solid.
Sounding very confident there. One last question. We were from Fuji, Shanghai. That was really cold. Now it's hot, about 30-something degrees in Thailand. So how does that impact the team or the car?
Well, we got some coolers, so it's pretty nice. In the box, I think the team is pretty happy. In the car, well, you don't really feel it until you stop. So after 1 hour, this could be a problem when I come here and then I have to wait to get out again. I will probably feel the heat, but then as soon as I go race on track again, there will be some wind coming onto me, so I think it will be fine.
That sounds like a solid strategy for you, getting in and out of the car. Hopefully you'll get by the hot weather here. So that was Kubash Moskovsky. He's going to qualify later for Inter Europol. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Nadia. Kuba Shmihofsky, Graham, talking about coolers, but actually one of the coolest people you could think of, currently in the lead by 11 points in the LMP3 class, and they've had a win and a second so far. It has been a fantastic start for that team.
And it's been a complete change to their plans for the start of this season. This is a team from Poland, so something like 30 degrees hotter here than it is back in Kuba's home at the moment. They were planning to start their season with the LMP2 races in North America.
Yeah.
They're now going to continue through to trying to win their Le Mans place with those LMP2 cars here, and they've done it with a couple of fantastic races. Second one of which, where they've cemented that championship lead, was at our second round at Fuji Speedway. Fantastic race from all of them, but particularly they thought they overachieved. Clearly that's not the case. They're now closing in on a championship win, and it came with a fantastic result for the team, the number 13 car at Fuji Speedway. Well, 4 hours that we didn't expect to be weather related, but they certainly were. To the fore, the start went Harrison Newey. Trouble early on from Kargai as they came in for a pit stop that they would later regard to have been a mistake. That didn't affect things as things would turn out. Nearly 3.5 hours later, the number 11 car out of the mix to start with, but then battling back from there on in for the local team. There they were at the end of that race, utterly delighted with what would emerge as being a race win. Well, there were trips and falls for a number of teams. The 50 car still out on slicks on a drying track. But the story in LMP3 was a fantastic battle between Inter Europol and the number 3 crew from United Autosports. It looked for so long as if that would go the way of the Polish flag team, but the safety car threw a lifeline to the number 3 squad from United Autosports. They would eventually come home with a cracking win for the Yorkshire-based but US-flagged team. A little further back, it ended up as a 3-car battle. Looked like it might be a 2-car battle for third between the 23 car, the 35 car, and this crew, the number 4 from ARC Bratislava. No one really would have expected that what was going to occur here was that the 23 and the 4 car would be doing battle for an overall podium finish. Behind, though, or rather ahead, it was about the 22 from United Autosports, the 24 from ARC Bratislava, and that had more twists and turns than the Nürburgring. And against the expectations of some, it was the young Frenchman that actually had the upper hand. The Judd Power in the back of his number 24 car, trumping the Nissan Power in the 22. Whether or not it was to do with the way the car was set up, the strategy, the tyres, or whatever, by the end of it, it would be the 24 car bringing home an invaluable win after disaster struck the team whilst leading at Shanghai. 24 brings 25 points away from the 4 hours, and Harrison Newey passed on the helmet for his teammate Andrea Pizzitola. That's what that win feels like. Absolutely fantastic stuff. So after disaster in the opening round for the 24 crew, it all came back to them at the Fuji 4 hours. They've now set up themselves with, well, potentially a championship challenge. Attila de Jong is, though, back with the team this weekend. That's going to be another dynamic for the 24 crew. Algarve Pro, another team really desperate to get that Le Mans place. But there really are developing challenges in every one of the 4 classes here, Jivan, and teams that really can see they've got a tiny points deficit to make up.
That's it. It's round 3, so you want to set things up for the final round at the end of February, of course, in Sepang. And as you said, a lot of these teams have a lot of work to do this weekend. Now, looking at Algarve Pro, their season literally started in Fuji, and that race, as you just saw, was beset with all sorts of weather conditions. I remember it was foggy at the start, and then
freezing
it rained.
Cold.
And you just saw on the highlights there as well, there was a change in the middle of it between wets and slicks. Doesn't look likely like we're going to be seeing that at Buriram. Buriram is hot, it's arid, it's 35 degrees, and it is the start of the second half of the championship. The first 2 events were cold, the second 2 are hot. How does that affect the team strategy? Well,
I think the first thing is it's going to be about managing the asset you've got in the car. Not a lot of these guys are used to actually driving in tropical conditions. You know, that's going to be a tough thing with the length of stints that you've actually got in the cars. But yeah, we're going to see that develop. It's going to be a theme to do with the cars, the drivers, the tyres as well. Let's go back down, though, to pit lane, though. Nadia has got one of the people who's going to be tackling those conditions for 4 hours tomorrow.
Here at Algarve Pro Garage with defending LMP2 champion, we've got Harrison Newey. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Hot here, nice weather, you know, getting a suntan on. I'm very pale, I need it, so yeah.
Right, now we have to talk about the track. It's not your first time here. We've seen you here last season. Tell us, maybe what are some of the challenges that Buriram will be bringing?
I think the most difficult thing about this place is you've got so much room to run off and everything, and actually trying to keep the car on track. It sounds silly, but trying to extract everything out of the car and everything out of the track as possible. But you're doing, 200 kilometers an hour, and you're trying to, work with an inch margin. So you go too far one way by maybe an inch, and you get a penalty. So. That's really tough, but if you bring it under the limit, make sure you're always on the track, then you're going to lose a lot of time. So that's the most difficult thing here for sure.
I'll keep that in mind next time I'm on the racetrack here at Buriram. But thank you so much. Nice to hear from your perspective. But also, we'd like to know, we hear that you have always been with a two-man team here in Algarve Pro, but we hear that Untitled de Jong will be joining you guys. So from a two-driver to the three-driver team, how is that changing things?
Well, yeah, obviously, unfortunately in Shanghai, we were only a one-driver team because, you know, the engine blew up. So that was unfortunate. So, well, we did 20 minutes or something. And then, yeah, in Fuji, Ate had some business commitments, so he couldn't make it. So it was just myself and Andrea. Obviously, we won the race, so we're really happy with that. Coming back here, Ate is just finding his feet in the car again. He's done a really good job so far. The pace has been really impressive from him, so we're looking forward to it. I think he's really excited for the race. He really likes it here, so yeah, it should be good.
Nice. So three-man team, that's going to be exciting. One last question. You guys are going to be charging up for Sepang, of course. How important is a win here or even a pole position here in Buriram?
Yeah, we won the pole big time because you get the 1 point, which, I mean, with the engine blow up, we're quite far behind, just 25 points from the race win. We were looking at probably 2 race wins if it wasn't for that. So that would have been nice, but didn't happen. So now, yeah, we need to get those points back. Looking for the race win here, obviously, as always. And yeah, I think now it's just push as hard as you can in every race, try and win every race, and then whatever that brings, it brings.
Nice. So important for that 1 point. You're going to be in the car later. All the best. So you heard it from Harrison Newey. Back to you guys in the commentaries.
Well, there you go. Nui talking looking a little bit into the Algarve Pro Racing team and what they need from this weekend. As we were saying, it is very important for them to pick up not only top points, but hopefully for something to happen to their competitors, United Autosports, so it's all set up for Sepang. Now, what they were saying, what Harrison was saying before is, it's a narrow margin of error that you have up here at Buriram. It's going to be tough for them to get out there. And of course, Untitled de Jong, I actually met him earlier on the day. He's looking in top form. He's going to add that extra bit of steel to the team.
He does seem to have arrived here really with his racing head screwed on, and that's a great thing, to actually add to this. He is obviously the bronze driver as opposed to the gold or the silver. We also heard Harrison actually there talking about the challenges of this track. It is slippy. There's a lot of dust around here. It's slippy. The heat doesn't help because, of course, that means the cars can actually get quite oily on the surface of the track. But for me, it's all going to be about track limits, and particularly it's going to be in qualifying. It's going to be about track limits. This track, there you go, 4.5 kilometres. It is 12 turns.
It's short. It's actually quite short.
It is short. It's very quick. And it's got those track limits kind of drawing you in. It's almost magnetic, with turn 1 being a big problem. Turn 3, massive overtaking opportunity we'll see tomorrow in the race. But then turn 4, super, super quick. Get it wrong, though, and it goes very wrong into turn 5. Turn 6, flat out of there. But turn 7 is where we've seen some very big accidents this weekend. And indeed last year, Untitled de Jong had a huge accident there last weekend. Last year, rather, that took him out all the way to turn 8. 9, 10 and 11 is going to be a pretty technical run to try to get the best speed you can down that back straight, down to the final turn. There's where people can actually get into trouble under braking, particularly if they're in close contention. But if you get that turn right, fire yourself down for a great setup for the next lap around. And there's going to be plenty of those in 4 hours of track action.
Yep, 12 turns, 7 rights, 5 lefts, and that's what, in terms of gradient, does it pose any serious problems? We had a look at Johnny Molam's earlier lap. Of course, it did look like it was going up and down a little bit, but not too much.
No, I mean, going around on a skateboard, you get tired. I think it's fair to say it is pretty flat. But that's not to say it's featureless. And you heard from Johnny Molam earlier aboard the number 5 TF Sports Red River Aston Martin that it is a challenging track and he's enjoying some of those corners, and that's what you want to hear from these drivers. It's a corner I really enjoy. Did it from Pipo Durrani last time out, and there are corners here that will be stand out for them in terms of the challenge of keeping the maximum grip and the maximum speed they can out of whatever package they've got underneath them, whether it's a GT car or one of the LMP2 P2 or P3 class cars.
Well, cutting back to some of these stories that will be evolving this weekend, and they are critical stories as well. One, the results of the 2 free practice sessions that we've seen today and yesterday have already proved very interesting indeed, because some of the teams up at the top, notably ARC Bratislava, who have put in a very consistent run. They're about 10 points off right now, the lead in the LMP2 class. They look confident. I know Anders Fjordbach was out. Oh, sorry, Lin Kang, Darren Burke, and Miro Konopka were out, and they put in a 1:26.150 in free practice 1. 1. And then, of course, in free practice 2, they were a little bit slower, but it was Algarve Pro Racing that took the lead.
And interestingly, both the free practice sessions have been led by LMP2 AM squads. Now, okay, it's going to be in the pro drivers that are aboard those cars, the silver drivers aboard those cars. That's another part of the mix here. It's about the pro and the AM and pulling them together. There's a driver coaching aspect. There's a technical aspect. There's a motivation aspect. You know, what it's looking for is that raw speed, but particularly the experience. And when you're looking for experience, we saw it a little earlier on, the kind of speed that you can still actually bring to this party. There's very few people on this grid more experienced than Johnny Molan. I know Nadia's got Johnny down with him in pit lane in just a couple of moments' time. Let's hear from Johnny Molan.
Right, we do have Johnny Molan here with us, TF Sport. The Aston Martin is right at the back, and you're going to be getting into the car for qualifying later. How are you feeling?
Actually, Bonamy Grimes is going to be qualifying. Like you know already, Nadia, we're here for Ivor and for Bon, so we're giving them the experience of qualifying. We're alternating between them, so we're looking forward to it. The way it's worked out, we've had some problems with gearbox and power steering, so we actually haven't run new tyres yet. So Bon's going to have 2 new sets of tyres for qualifying. So 2 stabs at it, we'll see what he can do.
That's going to be interesting. You were just talking about, yes, it's all about Bon and all about Ivor that's going to be here. It's all about learning and the experience, right? So then after the first 2 rounds, what do you think is most valuable lessons you guys have learned for the whole team?
I think it's a really good question, actually. The Asian Le Mans series is a fantastic series because it's a really good mix of professional and amateur drivers. Obviously, with Red River Sport, we're here looking after the amateur driver. Bon, in particular, has really taken to it. He obviously did Shanghai as well. Ivor's obviously now playing catch-up a little bit, so he's a bit behind Bon. There's a good bit of rivalry going on. But I think, especially in Bon's case, just learning to be out there with other prototypes around you, the multi-class system of any Le Mans series, whether it's Asia, European Le Mans series, just fantastic learning tool. And ultimately, with the Le Mans 24 hours in mind for us, this is the perfect learning ground.
Fantastic. Now, we know you did the hot lap with us. We all heard it. I saw it just now. So maybe you can tell us, Buriram International Circuit, what are some of the challenges of the track?
Well, again, the biggest challenge is probably because it's got MotoGP curbing, especially in a GT car, it's very easy to run off the track and gain an advantage. And sometimes you don't do it deliberately, but you're trying to get back to throttle as early as you possibly can, carry as much speed through the corner, and that naturally with a GT car, you don't have the downforce, pushes you wide. And that's when Eduardo is going to be on the radio saying, you know, he's already told me off a few times. So the trick in the race is not going to be abuse track limits and get penalties because of that. The track itself is fantastic. It's very, very technical in terms of not difficult to learn, but in terms of not overdriving the corner entry to get a lap time. In any car, especially a GT class car, is tricky. And the fast turn 4, our minimum speed through there is about 240 kilometers an hour, even with a GT car with not much downforce. And then the P cars, they're flat through there. So it's very demanding for the drivers. We're going to have to all work together. And on top of that, it's not exactly cool weather either. So it's going to be a tough one. But it should be exciting.
Right. I wish the whole team all the best. And that was it from Johnny Molan, guys. Back to you.
Thanks for that, Nadia. Johnny Molan, we did see him earlier on the onboard going around the Buriram International Circuit. And that brings us very succinctly to our third evolving story. We did talk about LMP2 and the fight that's happening between Algarve Pro Racing and United Autosports. Both of those teams looking to really put the points down, hopefully get the pole. In LMP3, Inter Europol's 11-point lead is looking to be consolidated, because if Inter Europol come through this, then it's going to be a very good Sepang final round for them. But Johnny Molan was talking about the GT class. Let's talk about that now. Car Guy is probably had the best run of any team so far in the Asian Le Mans Series this season.
It's been a real surprise package. Little team from a very strong but little team from Japan, just outside Fuji Speedway circuit boundary. We went and visited that with Nadia and the guys last week, but it's been a spectacular story for them. They stand at the cusp with a good weekend here at Buriram to be in effective pole position to be going to France in June. This was part of a multi-year plan for Cargo. They didn't expect to be in this position, and it could just be that the guys behind that, and they're super enthusiastic, could be those guys who are big eyes, wide-mouthed amazements, Let's have a look at the Fuji highlights that actually set up where we are now coming into the second half of the season to see whether or not that bright yellow Ferrari might be going to Le Mans. 4 hours that we didn't expect to be weather related, but they certainly were to the fore. The start went Harrison Newey. Trouble early on from Kargai as they came in for a pit stop that they would later regard to have been a mistake. That didn't affect things as things would turn out. Nearly 3.5 hours later, the number 11 car out of the mix to start with, but then battling back from there on in for the local team. There they were. At the end of that race, utterly delighted with what would emerge as being a race win. Well, there were trips and falls for a number of teams. The 50 car still out on slicks on a drying track. But the story in LMP3 was a fantastic battle between Inter Europol and the number 3 crew from United Autosports. It looked for so long as if that would go the way of the Polish flag team, but the safety car threw a lifeline to the number 3 squad from United Autosports. They would eventually come home with a cracking win for the Yorkshire-based but US-flagged team. A little further back, it ended up as a 3-car battle. Looked like it might be a 2-car battle for third between the 23 car, the 35 car, and this crew, the number 4 from ARC Bratislava. No one really would have expected that what was going to occur here was that the 23 and the 4 car would be doing battle for an overall podium finish. Behind, though, or rather ahead, it was about the 22 from United Autosports, the 24 from ARC Bratislava, and that had more twists and turns than the Nürburgring. And against the expectations of some, it was the young Frenchman that actually had the upper hand. The Judd Power in the back of his number 24 car, trumping the Nissan Power in the 22. Whether or not it was to do with the way the car was set up, the strategy, the tyres, or whatever, by the end of it, it would be the 24 car bringing home an invaluable win after disaster struck the team whilst leading at Shanghai. 24 brings 25 points away from the 4 hours, and Harrison Newey pat on the helmet for his teammate Andrea Pizzitola. That's what that win feels like. Absolutely fantastic stuff.
It's all kicking off in the GT class. Let's get down to the pits now. Nadia has one of those GT teams, Tianchi Racing Team, and Jean-Carl Vernet she's speaking to.
Indeed, Jean-Carl Vernet in car number 88. It's going to be the first time that he's with us at Asian Le Mans Series. So, of course, welcome to the series. And how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, thanks. I'm really happy to be a part of the championship. If it's, it's going to be my first race, first qualifying. We'll see how it goes. But no, it was a little bit difficult this morning. We had some few issues on the car, so not so much track time. But I'm confident, and we'll try to do our best, like in a few minutes.
Fantastic. So that means you're going to be qualifying for the team? Is it you?
Yeah, I'm going to qualify the 68 for the team, and I will try to give hard life to the Ferraris. Looks like they're quick, but I think we have some good stuff also in our back, so we'll try our best.
Fantastic, trying your best. Now, I have to ask, because past 2 rounds we were in cold weather, and now in Buriram it's pretty hot. How is that treating you and also the car?
I'm okay with that. Normally I'm racing in WTCR and it's super warm inside, so I got used to that. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a long race. It's going to be difficult for the drivers, of course, and also for the car. So, but I'm confident in the team, I'm sure they're going to prepare the car well. And we'll see this afternoon, and then the most important is the race. And I'm quite confident with my 2 teammates. They did a pretty good job during the practice, so we'll see.
All the best later when you get into the car for qualifying. And that was John, you guys. Back to you guys.
Thanks for that, Nadia. Now, of course, if you were expecting to see qualifying right now, we have heard from race control that it has been delayed slightly. It should be underway in the next 10 to 12 minutes, we understand it. What was the reason for that, Graham?
Well, we had an hour of red flag in free practice after an incident in the free practice session, about 15 minutes in, for the number 7 Ikuria Kos car. It was Nick Adcock, I'm afraid, had the incident. It happened down at turn 8. With the car going off and into the barrier. Now, weren't sure, and it may well be the first time I've had to see this, if this is the replay of the incident, and yeah, it's just flicked off the curb.
That is a big
now,
shunt.
That was a very big shunt, almost a carbon copy of the incident we saw from the Algarve Pro LMP2 car last year. That was nasty. Now, Nick is absolutely fine. We should make that clear. We'll wait and see what actually happens with the number 7 car. I'm expecting we might well see that car back out. That was only a couple of hours ago. Damage, as you could see, to the bodywork and indeed to 2 corners of that car. But these guys are very good at turning these cars around very quickly. Let's keep an eye and see whether or not the 7 car actually makes it out. That was a big shunt for Nick Adcock. He wasn't sure when he got out the car what had happened. There was a thought that maybe that car had suffered a puncture. I was trying to look carefully at that clip to see whether or not the tyre was down where they lost the grip over those curbs.
Well, as you could see from that shunt, it's not just about the driver and the car. There's a lot of debris that was put on that corner. And as we understand it, it's that debris being cleared and, of course, the car itself that has led to this slight delay in qualifying. But it is underway and it will be at least on track within the next 10 minutes. And this gives us a lot of time, Graham, to now we've talked about the top teams in LMP2, LMP3 and GT. Let's look at some of these other teams that are fighting just underneath them, Akuriakos being one of them. Some of these teams, of course, have come into the Asian Le Mans series this year, had never raced on these Asian tracks. It's a whole new time of the year for them to be racing. Now, for a team like Akuriakos, would you have expected more from them or less?
They were very competitive in the European Le Mans Series. We'll be having news later today of what their plans are for the 2019 season, certainly in Europe. As to exactly what's going to be going on in terms of the Asian Le Mans Series for next season, yet to make that decision. But they're basically training through their team and their drivers. As look down the pit lane now, beginning to get a little bit busier as the clock ticks towards where race control will have told the teams when to expect to be coming out. With the GT cars you'll see on the apron first, and they're for the most part a little further down the pit lane. But the key for Akuriakos Nielsen is to basically bring forward the talent that they've actually got, both in the garage and in the cars, to the programs they're going to be planning.
Well, a 5th and a 4th place so far isn't so bad a result from the first 2, especially in the cold races as well. So they still have a lot to do. Some of the other teams, of course, that we have to talk about, Eurasia Motorsport, we'll get to them in a second as well, and Viper Nisa Racing.
Well, also Paris Barthez competition. They've been quite quiet this year so far, but they brought some LMP3 drivers across from the European Le Mans Series into Asia for their first taste of LMP2. They're doing pretty well. They're bubbling under. We're going to go down to Nadia now. It's got Francois Heriot from the 35 car. She's going to be talking to him about the experiences so far in the Asian Le Mans Series.
Indeed, we've got Francois with us from Panis Barthez. Now, we want to know the past 2 rounds. How has it been for the team? How is the team feeling about it so far?
We are very grateful and very happy to be in the championship this year. As drivers, we were discovering the car and the tracks because we didn't know anything. And the team is also discovering this championship. We are very pleased to be fighting amongst all the teams here, and a lot of teams that already know the tracks, and drivers also knowing the tracks. And well, that's a lot of fun for now. We are still working to find the good basis and setups to fight for the podium, but the work will pay in the end. So we are very confident about it.
Right. I'm sure the work will pay in the end, and consistency. It's a 4-hour race. Anything can happen. Now focusing on Buriram, 4 hours. How is the preparation going so far?
So far we've been testing 1 full day. We made very good improvements on setups. We tried some other things today which were not so good, but we are still working on good setups. We'll be mainly focusing on the race because qualifying for a 4 hours race is not the main thing, and we'll see in the end where we stand.
Right. Now, you were just telling me just now Matthew is in the car who's going to qualify later. So, of course, pole position is the prize that everybody's aiming for. How is that, you think, going to go for the team?
To be honest, we will not focus a lot on qualification. Okay. We will focus much more on the race. And we're still struggling with the setup, so we'll see where we stand. But we are more focused on having a good car on a full stint.
Right. When you say still struggling with the setup, it's already been 2 rounds. Is it because of the weather, or how did things change?
Yeah, the weather here is very different because we are in Shanghai. We had temperatures below 10. In Fuji, it was more around 0. And now we are on more around 35, so it's very different. The track is brand new for us, so it's a very different philosophy. So we have to rethink a lot of things.
Make things a little bit more interesting, I guess. So all the best to you and the Lahey brothers for today and of course for tomorrow. And back to you guys in commentary.
Thanks, Nadia. Yes, the Panis Barthez competition team is the next one of the teams I wanted to talk about as well. They have been increasing. They've had a 6th and a 4th in the 2 races so far. But tell me more about this team, Graham.
Well, it's a couple of names you might recognise from completely different areas of sport. Olivier Panis, people who follow Formula 1 will know as being the ex-Monaco Grand Prix winner back in his racing days. The Barthez is Fabien Barthez.
Yes.
Manchester United and France, a World Cup winning footballer.
Who famously turned to motor racing after those achievements.
He did, and I think we're going to see Fabien back in action in Le Mans prototype racing. Maybe this year, maybe next year. He took a time out to do some GT racing last year. But that's a team that's been coming on strong in the Asian Le Mans series with guys they've brought from LMP3. They may or may not feature in what happens next for the team. But they're actually back into European competition after this season, stepping up to a 2-car LMP2 effort. And they've already told us they want to be back here in Asia at the end of this year, 2019, for the 2019-20 season. And they may well be one of the first adopters of the new spec LMP2 cars here in the Asian marketplace. Because at the moment, of course, we're racing with the older, the pre-Gibson cars here. But from next season onwards, for the Pro-Am class, rather than the Am class, it'll be the new full-rich 650 brake horsepower Gibson engines, but the current cars will continue in the Am class.
That's exactly the news. That was actually released this week. It's big news, especially because some of those new hybrids, we're talking the new LMP2.
LMP2 in the rest of the world is basically 4 separate chassis suppliers, Orica, Ligier, Multimatic, and Dallara, but all with the same British-built Gibson engine. It's about 100 horsepower more than we've got for the cars here, so we're basically going to be getting quicker LMP2 cars for next season. These cars, though, very pretty, the ones we've got here. I think they're prettier than perhaps the cars we've got in the WC right now. But we'll wait and see what happens in terms of teams coming forward to confirm their plans for 2019, 2020. But we talk about teams and drivers that are looking forward to
greater
indeed,
heights.
And drivers and teams with some heritage. We've got the R24 team, the number 50 car, which has been an all-female crew team throughout this season. Great to welcome back to this race after competing at Shanghai, stepping back for Fuji. The daughter of a Le Mans legend, Peter Cox, Stephanie Cox, young Dutch lady driver, is going to be down with Nadia in just a moment in pit lane to talk about the progress with the R24 crew, helped out by Euro International, a well-established title contenders in the ELMS LMP3 class. Let's go down to Nadia and talk to Stephanie Cox.
Indeed, Stefan Cox is with us from R24 team. Nice to have you back. Yes, we spoke a bit in Shanghai and now you're back with us in Buriram. So how are you feeling so far? How is the team looking towards Buriram?
I think it's quite fine. I'm really happy to be back. Obviously, I was not there in Fuji, but I'm really happy to be in Buriram. It was the first time on track today, so it was a lot to take in. But I think we managed fine, and Maria and I are taking it as a big experience, and we hope to make the best out of this.
Now, I know that you guys have raced as a 3-driver team, and today, this time around, it's going to be you and Marie only. How is that going to impact the team? That means you're going to be in the car longer?
It means I'm in the car longer, and Marie as well. So for us as a driver, it's quite good, you know, because you need every lap for as an experience. So that I can drive a bit longer, I hope it will be good for my performance as well.
You're going to be the one qualifying, getting into the car just minutes from now. What's going through your head?
A lot, to be honest. Now, you know, I've checked some data and everything, and I think for the first time here, we're not doing bad, and yeah, let's see what it brings, but I think we can do a good job.
Right. Nice to hear that you're confident. All the best later, and of course for tomorrow. There you have it, Stefan Cox, and back to you.
Nadia, Stephanie Cox, as you said, Graham, looking more to grow the team and grow in this series rather than looking to win it. And we heard that from the Panis-Barthez competition as well. They flatly said, it's not about qualifying for us, it's about something else.
There are lots of different game plans in play here. We've talked about the top teams here looking to get those Le Mans places, but there's the other opportunity that's offered here, which is to give some of these drivers and some of these teams the opportunity to develop their craft. They're under a little less pressure here than perhaps in Europe at the moment, although this championship
is that from a smaller field?
It's a smaller field. It's a little bit of physical distance from some of the marketplaces they've been operating in.
Right.
But in what is a buoyant marketplace now in Asia, this is, I think, going to be a growing force in international endurance racing. Great to see Stephanie here. Her father was with us in Shanghai and doing what dads do when they get together with sons and daughters and giving lots of sage advice. I'm sure was always welcomed in the spirit in which it was given. If you're listening in, Peter, I'm sure you've been watching very carefully about the progress for your young lady. We're going to be very interested to see too what kind of speed you can get out of that. What we've actually got developing though.
The person, go carry on.
Sorry,
What I wanted to talk about was some of the other teams in LMP3. R24, of course, is looking to grow. Viper Nisa Racing with Nigel Moore and Douglas Koo. They had a fantastic Fuji. They got their first pole.
They had a great Fuji and actually looked to be actually on for a really good result. Had a bit of bad luck in the pits. They've had a bit of bad luck here this weekend so far.
That's right.
In the testing session yesterday, Douglas actually rolled the car. It was a quite gentle roll.
It was a gentle roll, but I think what Graham is trying to explain is it was a 360 roll back onto wheels.
Yeah, it was. And Douglas kind of came out and was basically thinking about, well, what the heck was going on there. Similar car actually to the number 2 United Autosports car, and the only visible damage you could see on the Viper Nisa 65 car was that airbox on the top. You can see it there with UnitedAutosports.com on the 65 car. That was crushed, and a few scrapes and bruises, if you like, all over the carbon bodywork. What you're looking at there is the powertrain for these LMP3 cars. It is a Nissan V8 engine. It is an X-Track gearbox, and all LMP3 cars, whether it be a Ligier, as we've got on the grid here, a Norma, a Ginetta. We might be seeing one of those in the final race of the season. More news, I'm sure, from the series there. All of those powertrains are actually provided by Orica in France as a single unit. Wow. You can see there the cockpit for the little Ligier here, cosy. And it's going to be cosy, but I'm afraid very steamy indeed. Lots of glasswork there that's going to keep things actually rather warm. So that, I think, is going to be the big challenge, particularly for some of the European drivers and particularly for the guys that are not as used to these conditions as some of the Asian guys we've actually got on the grid.
Well, talking about that number 2 United Autosports car, of course, has been doing very well. Chris Buncombe, Garrett Grist, and Wayne Boyd at the helm of that car, and they are currently 3rd in the LMP3 Championship with 28 points. That was an 18 and a 10. Good results for them.
It was. Next door, by the way, to United Autosports, they've got a couple of these cars, but this is the Ligier JSP2, an LMP2 car for ARC Bratislava. They've been a real force this year and are standing tall in the LMP2 AM side of things. Just to the right of the shot there, it's the engine compartment where you've got the venerable 4.5 litre Nissan engine, the VK engine, that's done such great service around the world. Not just in LMP2, but V8 supercars. The Nissan effort there was a different state of tune for the Nissan engine. A couple of the guys you're looking at the back of that car, by the way, that's Lee Penn, the race engineer for ARC Bratislava. I seem to bump into Lee just about every racetrack I go to anywhere in the world. These guys are from Grease Motorsports in the UK.
Right.
They're service providers for ARC Bratislava, Slovakia's finest, but it's a British team helping the Slovakian core team here to push things forward. And, these guys are going to be looking forward here to, I think, maintaining the momentum they've developed through the first 2 races. And this number 4 squad, you know what? They could be going to Le Mans.
Well, this is it. I've been very impressed by ARC Bratislava, not just this season, but last season as well. The fantastic shots that we're getting in from the pit lane right now while we wait for qualifying, which, if you have just joined us and we're expecting to be on now, it was delayed due to an incident with the number 7 Ecurie Nielsen car that happened in free practice 2 this afternoon. And we were told just after 4 o'clock that it would be starting at 4:45, which is about a minute away from now.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, as said, we get to check out the field. And this ARC Bratislava car, as I said, has really impressed me. Now, you can see the cars lining up on the pit lane exit, and that is the Tianqi. Is that 66 or 88?
That is one of the two. Similar colour schemes.
Good answer, Greg. Good answer.
Five cars in this first session. We're away now and clear. It goes green, green car on the track, green flags and green lights at the end of pit lane, and away go the 5 GT cars for this session.
Now, 15 minutes, of course, for GT, 15 minutes for LMP2 and LMP3. And as we said earlier on, this qualifying session is going to be ever so significant because it will set up the pole and, of course, the grid for the third race of the Asian Le Mans Series this season.
Well, let's talk about who's going to be out there in these cars. Already out, we saw coming out were the two Audis, Tianqi Racing's car, the 66 car, the hand of Max Visa. That's the GT Am entry. The 88 car is in the hands of Jean-Carl Venet, JK Venet. Max Visa and Jean-Carl Venet then for Tianqi Racing. Car guy in the 11 car will have world champion James Calado aboard the number 11 Ferrari. The 51 will have his fellow world champion because they share a car in the WEC, the World Endurance Championship, Alessandro Pierre Guidi. As we heard a little earlier, he was talking to Nadia, Johnny Molan telling us that Bon Grimes will be getting even more track time because he's going to be doing qualifying in this grand old lady, the number 5 Aston Martin V12 Vantage GT3. And by my reckoning, with the announcements we've had so far about what we're going to see in international motorsport in 2019, this car has got 3 races left in its international career. The 2 races of the Asian Le Mans Series, and in the middle of that, a car we're going to see at the Bathurst 12 Hour. But the very last international race planned at the moment, we may well see others, for the old V12 version of the Aston Martin Vantage will be at Sepang for the Asian Le Mans Series, and that will be a delight to see and to hear because it's a fabulous sounding beast.
It's a fantastic car. Historical moments set for the finale of the Asian Le Mans Series this season. Now, as you can see at the top of your screen, 12 minutes on the clock. Now, let's put this in perspective. Looking at the lap times that we can expect from these GTs, roughly 1:33, 1:34. That was what was set in free practice. And looking at the amount of time they've got, you're really dealing with about 3 or 4 fast laps in the middle of this window.
You absolutely are, and what you should be listening for, we'll call it if we see it, and if we're told about it, and if you're watching on live timing as well, as I know an awful lot of you do, look for what pops up on the screen from race control about track limits here, particularly as these guys start to push. They'll be working now to get a bit of heat into the Michelin tyres, equipping all the cars here, of course, this weekend. But once these guys start to push, you're going to start to see that almost that it must be the barriers here. They must have carbon fibre magnets in them because it seems to draw them away from the track surface.
It's right. The cars seem to skate a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. It's a 51 car. Alessandro Pierre Guidi has headed one of the free practice sessions, James Calado the other, and there tends to be just hundreds between the pair. There's a bit of, I'm sure, very friendly needle and rivalry amongst the pair in opposing cars here, both in contention for the championship, but their day job beyond the Asian Le Mans Series is to share the 51 car in the FI World Endurance Championship. It was this pair that shared the first ever FIWC GT World Championship for drivers in 2017-18.
Well, these guys are coming around to complete now, what should be coming around to complete their first lap. I can tell you that this Ferrari 488 GT3, driven by Alessandro Pierre Guidi, is on a flyer right now. Fast sector 1, fast sector 2, fast sector 3, 132.552 already put down, and he's topping the table right now.
He is. That's the first lap we've seen this weekend into the 132s from Alessandro Pierre Guidi. Car goes through now to start a fast lap. But that will be, I think, yes, I'm sure indeed he has. James Calado has lost a lap there, and that will have been track limits, I'm sure. 132.5, then plays 133.9. That's Jean-Carl Venet in the number 88, the quicker of the 2 Audis at the moment, ahead of the sister 66 car. The outlap deleted, that won't be a problem for the number 88 car. So it's Ferrari, Audi, Aston Martin, then the number 11 car, James Calado. But Calado will be pushing hard to match the best he possibly can from his usual teammate, but here his opponent, Alessandro Pierguidi. We've got just 10 minutes left in the session. It's quick-fire stuff. They've got to get it right, and there's only so many times you can make an error.
Absolutely, absolutely. The track limits issue beginning already to show its significance, because we did hear from Johnny Molam when he was talking to Nadia in the pit, saying it's very difficult with these GT cars with less downforce to just keep on the track. When you're looking to full throttle out of the corners, it means you might have a couple of wheels off the black stuff, just like that. And Eduardo Freitas, the race director, has his eyes open before the race, during qualifying, before qualifying, all the time. And he is one to delete these laps. So if you're looking at 5 or 6 laps in the middle of the session, if you get 2 or 3 deleted, you're not left with that much.
You're not, and it just puts that pressure back on. Last time around, a slower lap for Alessandro Pierguidi, but significantly, it was a purple sector for the final sector. Set himself up, as we said when we were talking through the track layout, for that drag strip down the front straight to see what he can do about improving the time this time around. Behind him, it's still Jean-Carl Vernet, but moving up to third quickest now, James Collado in the number 11 car guy car. So it's 1:32.6. Plays 1:33.5 and 1:33.7. So 1:32.6, despite the fact there was no improvement in Sector 1 or Sector 2, it was close enough that that purple sector has increased the advantage of the 51 car of Alessandro Pierguidi. He has all but a couple of hundredths of a full second at the moment ahead of Jean-Carl Vernet, but everybody behind the number 51 is going more quickly. Vernet does close the gap, takes another 0.3 out. He's still in the 1:33s, but going quicker still behind him, and coming through in about 30 seconds time is going to be James Collado. How close can he get to his Ferrari mate's best lap of the session so far? Watching James now, ran a bit wide there, was a little bit ragged, as gets it all gathered up for that flick-flack before the run down towards the final turn, turn 12, at the end of this lap. Is he going to get anywhere close? Is he going to make it to the front row with this lap? I don't think it's going to be pole position, but we'll see in just about 3 or 4 seconds' time as the bright yellow car crosses the line now, and he does not improve. Does not improve on a 1:33.779. Looked a little bit messy, actually, the latter part of that lap for James. He's clearly trying to hook it up here, but the pressure is beginning to increase with under 8 minutes to go.
Well, let's just look at the bigger picture of this. We were talking about the evolving stories right from the top of the program that's been happening, and in the GTs, we didn't really look into the points of it. Right now, Car Guy with 2 wins and a pole in Fuji are on 51 points. Spirit of Race in second, 36 points, 14 points behind with 2 seconds. So it literally has been mirrored results for those first 2 races. And what that means is, of course, that if Car Guy pulls off the same feat now, comes up with the win, they might be untouchable when it gets to Sepang. So it is important that Spirit of Race gets the 1 point for the pole, and on top of that can hopefully translate that into a win.
Absolutely right, but to explain why James didn't improve his time, it's because that lap was deleted. What we saw has been a little bit ragged. I think it recovered from actually just a minor off-track track limits incursion there. The 88 car on pit lane. TF Sport, by the way, have been in and back out again. Bon Grimes now back in 5th position. We didn't expect Bon to be in the mix for pole. It's new tyres going on for the number 88 of Jean-Carl Vernet. He thinks there's something here to attack. This is going to be an interesting one, isn't it? But the Audi R8 LMS V10 engine shared between the GT3 cars that are equipped by both Audi and Lamborghini elsewhere. We've seen the Lamborghinis out in the Asian Le Mans Series previously too. The 51 car, though, this is our session leader at the moment. 6 minutes to go, as in comes the Car Guy Ferrari too. So is it going to be tyres for both these cars? It's certainly tyres for 51. It looks to me as if it's going to be the same for the 11. This is going to be tight stuff at the end of this session. Are we going to see improvements in the last moments of the session?
Well, I'm just wondering, looking at the times that are coming in, Graham, both Spirit of Race and Tianchi Racing Team with laps, their last laps, 5 seconds slower than their best laps. Spirit of Race, Alessandro Pierguidi had his best of 1:32.617. His last lap, 1:37. He's in to change tyres. Anything in there?
Because it was his in lap. That's why.
Okay.
So the tyres are going on the Car Guy. This is going to be certainly the top 3 in this session at the moment. That's the 51 Ferrari. The 88 Audi and the 66 car actually goes up to third. Max Visa goes quicker than James Collado. So, sorry, 3 of the top 4 now changing tyres for another blast at this in the last 5 minutes. So car 5, and that is Bon Grimes, gets a lap time deleted. And,
now it looks like every one of our competitors in GT class has had at least one lap deleted, well, at least a great many of them. But yes, this is a really interesting situation for Targai, because of course they've been great qualifying and they got that pole in Fuji and they've been on the up, but now in 4th place.
Well, it's pressure on. You know, he's perfectly capable of withstanding that pressure, James Collado, top pro driver, world champion, as we said. We're watching now Bon Grimes, who's had the current lap deleted, by the way, but that was track limits at turn 1. That will have been, I think, a little bit of over-ambition from Bon, because in doing that, he's actually set the fastest first sector of the session so far, but that's not going to count. He'll be loving this, though. A long chat with Bon last time out at Fuji. He's enjoying the adventures out here in the Asian Le Mans Series, and part of a long list of racing that Johnny Molan is putting his 2 charges through as they prepare for taking steps up into the upper echelons of endurance racing in the Pro-Am classes. This is a great place to do it. You know, there's no better way of measuring your progress than to put yourself into a fabulous Aston Martin around these fantastic 4 tracks we've got for the Asian Le Mans Series, and putting yourself up against people like James Collado, Alessandro Pierguidi, Dries Vanthoor, and now Jean-Carl Vernet, top world-class professionals. They're the guys you're going to have to actually beat on track with whatever package you put together.
Now, these guys, as you can see from the top of the screen, the clock is now under 4 minutes, which means the max we're going to get is a couple of laps out of these guys to change or really switch up the order that we have right now. And as it stands right now, still, as you can see, the top left of your screen, Spirit of Racing, Tianqi Racing Team with a great double in 2nd and 3rd. They're going to be very happy with that. The team from China. And of course, J.K. Vernet, as you said, just stepping in right now. What a great qualifying session he's having.
He is indeed. He'll be enjoying that one. He'll be looking to fend off what I'm sure will be closer attention to James Collado. Beginning to see green sector times coming in with these cars back out on track on the new rubber for the closing moments of this session. 3 minutes to go. It isn't done yet. We've got Alessandro Pierguidi out there. He's just gone through sector 2 quicker than anybody else has.
We've 33.7 in sector 2. It's amazing.
Yep, we've got an improvement from Jean-Carl Vernet. He closes the gap to just half a second, but I think we're going to see Alessandro Pierguidi stretch his advantage again. We've got James Collado going quickly in sector 2. He's just, a couple of hundredths off the pace of Alessandro Pierguidi this time around. It's going to be mighty, mighty close here. Car 88 is not, though, going to get the next lap to count. What can Alessandro Pierguidi do? He's due across the line any moment now. It was a 1:33.32 rather 6:17. He takes 0.3 of a second out of that. It's a 1:32.321, and that gap goes back out to 0.8 of a second. And the Audi man cannot improve on this lap because he's going to lose it to track limits. The man that can improve, though, and does, and goes to 2nd position and into the 132s is James Collado. Half a second back now, 1:32.856. So it's the 51 Spirit of Race Ferrari ahead of the number 11 identical car, the car guy, Ferrari 488 GT3. This turbo V8 powered package proving to be mighty, mighty effective.
Well, it looks like that might be job done as the driver steps out of the car for the last minute.
That was Max Visa stepping out from the number 66 car. He will do no better, and I suspect no worse, than 5th position here. Watching, though, what Jean-Carl Vernet can do. His lap he's currently on, as we said, will not count. He will get, I believe, just one more crack at this. He goes through now to start what would be his final flying lap. I should say, though, by the way, neither of these Ferrari drivers have given up on this. Both of them with green sectors in their first sector, and the quicker of the 2 at the moment is James Collado. He's got half a second to make up. Can he make that half a second? Well, I wouldn't put money against it. It doesn't look from the pace he's got at the moment in sector 2 as if he's quite there, but a mighty effort through sector 3, and he's in there right now, could actually tell a different story. He will make it through, by the way. This could be his penultimate lap. He's got time to finish this lap and start another one if he feels that there's advantage in doing so and that he wants to take that life out the tyres. Through he comes now. down the back straight.
Going to be an important last 30 seconds for him. And he crosses the line.
He does improve, and he's 43 thousandths of a second is the gap. So he has improved by almost that, well, more than the half a second, but it's 43 thousandths of a second. This has been the tale of the season. Almost every session, these two guys, Pierre Guidi and Collado, barely separated by a tenth, and again under a tenth in qualifying here, and with still the potential to improve. Although Pierre Guidi is lifted off for this slowing down lap, it may well be that I wonder if he has run out of fuel. He surely won't get in the way of a charging James Collado. The Audi crosses the line. There's no improvement, I'm afraid, there for Jean-Carl Vernet. But what can the car guys do? Because that is going to be, I think, the only car out there at pace at this stage.
Well, we just saw Bonami Grimes coming in. There are the two Ferraris.
He's managed to go by the 51. It's the 11 car, though. Now, if he wasted even a tenth getting by that car, then it's going to be. I don't think he's on the pace here. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. He's gone through in a 35-second sector 2. That, I believe, is going to be it. It's going to be Spirit of Race with Alessandro Pierre Guidi at the wheel of the 51 car. That car will be on pole position in the 5-car GT class. Car guy in the hands of James Collado, the second Ferrari, the number 11 car, and our championship leaders will be second on the GT grid. Then we get the pair of Tianxi Racing Team Audis. They'll be a little disappointed with that, something like half a second back for their new star, Jean-Carl Vernet. And Jean-Carl Vernet, by the way, another Le Mans winner back in the GTM class, the early days of the WEC. And a Porsche then, now in an Audi. An Audi favoured driver with their TCR, touring car racing, and now in GT3 as well. And Max Wiese in the GTM 66 car. That car will be fourth on the grid. TF Sport in the hands of Bon Grimes, getting more experience out there on this Buriram track, trying to squeeze more pace out of that package. It's Bon Grimes, the British driver, in a very, very British car and a very, very British team that will be fifth on the grid in GT and GTM.
So we have had a story already, and that is that Spirit of Race have started their weekend here at the third round of the Asian Le Mans Series for this season very, very well. They needed a pole. They've got the pole. Whether, as I said, when it's 43 thousandths of a second, whether they're going to be able to translate that, because obviously it's a similar pace to Collado. Would you say that Car Guy had the best qualifying session just now?
No. I think well, you don't have a best qualifying session if you've dropped a lap to track limits. And I think I'm right that James Collado possibly dropped 2. So he won't be very happy with himself. He'll have had a quiet grin on his face of putting Alessandro Pierre Guidi under pressure right at the end there. Yeah. But he won't be happy when it comes to whatever Italian coffee they're going to sit and drink tonight, that Alessandro Pierre Guidi is the man with the smile we will doubtless see at some point in the next moments. He'll be very pleased indeed that he's racked up another point for the 51 crew. And Francesco Pianetti, my apologies, Francesco, and Os Negri Jr., both of them will be very pleased indeed with their top pro and his efforts this afternoon. There's Francesco, there is Os Negri, the silver fox there. I can say that as a silver fox. They'll be very pleased. He's taken them through his best lap. There will be Italian hand gestures to follow. I have zero doubt whatsoever about that. We do know that our good friends from AF Corsa, our Italian friends in particular, are incapable of talking without actually describing what they're talking with their hands. But cool as an Italian cucumber, Alessandro Pierre Guidi. And that's what you get when you pay for a world champion to join you on the grid of an international sports car race.
Well, he's looking very calm there as well. And of course, this is an extra point for Spirit of Race. They're looking to catch up with Car Guy, as we said, 14 points ahead after Fuji. But what's more important is they haven't won yet. They've had 2 seconds behind Car Guy, and this could mean that they have a slight edge to get their first win of the season in round 3.
Well, the other thing to say is, of course, remember last time Car Guy had the advantage of being very much on home ground. So even their gentleman driver knew that track very, very well. That's not something that the Car Guy pair of more or less professionally rated drivers, if you like, could actually say. So they're learning the tracks as well as learning the car, as well as we're learning the series. So they've actually been pulling themselves up to that kind of pace. Yep. this will be a bit of a fillip for them. They'll be very pleased indeed to have actually scored that point for qualifying, scored the advantage over the team on the other side of the garage. It's always a plus, isn't it?
Yeah. They've got to, as I said, you have to... Well, we just heard that we could actually be heading down to Nadia in just a second. And we're going to be obviously talking to the winners, or not the winners, the leaders in that qualifying session. So let's get down to the pits where Nadia should have our qualifying winners ready for a chat.
Yes, now we are at the garage for the car that finished fastest for the GT class, of course, Spirit of Race. And you were the guy that brought the car fastest just now, Alessandro Pierguidi. Of course, we have to ask you, how are you feeling right now? Everything okay?
I feel happy for sure, but honestly, it was really difficult. It was just a few tenths, few hundred to be on pole, so it was really very close this quali. But I knew that, but I think during the weekend we did a very good job. And in the end, we had the best car in the best moment. So far everything is good, and let's see for tomorrow.
Now, being very confident, I like that. Now, we know that the race is tomorrow, so you guys are in second place, if I'm not mistaken, after car guys. So, how important is the race for this round? How important is the win for this round? Of course, you did podium, 1 point there already, but how is the team feeling and the strategy for this weekend?
Well, we are here to win. We finished twice in second place. We don't like it, and we've been working very hard. And hopefully we can turn the table on those next few races and win the championship and go to Le Mans.
I love that. I love that confidence. Maybe one last question to you. From the two cold races, now the hot race, you see your teammates sweating buckets. How is everybody preparing for that?
I'm from Puerto Rico, so I'm actually used to the hot weather and the humidity, so I'll be fine for it. And I'm sure the rest of the teammates hopefully as well. Yeah.
Nice to know that everybody's going to be fine with the hot weather. So there you have it. Spirit of Race, guys. So back to you in commentary.
Thanks for that, Nadia. I think that, as you said, the hands came out immediately when they were talking, because but thankfully they drive with the hands, and those hands did some great things today. And let's see whether they can. Immediately, the grand aim was already stated. We want to win the championship. We want to get that invite to Le Mans. And to do that, wouldn't it be a story if the first two races won by Carguy and the last two won by Spirit of Race?
And don't you like seeing that spirit of race in both? Osnegri was there on the left-hand side, by the way, and Francesco Pivanetti on the right-hand side. That's what I love to see in pro-am racing. It is the absolute passion these guys have for this sport and for this sport at this length. Let's take a look back now, though, at some of the highlights of the qualifying for the GT class. Well, after a little bit of a delay, they were out and running. Tianchi Racing's 88 car first out to greet us, and followed out by the TF Sport Aston Martin for 15 minutes of, well, quick fire action. Green Audi ahead of blue Aston Martin as the qualifying session got underway, with the Ferraris later to join, but quickly into the stride of things. It was Alessandro Pierguidi that laid down an early marker in the number 51 Carguy Ferrari. He was the first man into the 132s for the race meeting, and that's continued to crack on into the second half of the session. The leading cars all stopping for a change of tyres, keeping the life in the first sets for the riggers to come tomorrow in 30-degree plus heat. Jean Calvinet making his debut with the Tianchi Racing team. Looked initially to be in the hunt, but all too soon, James Collado, after a little bit of a wobble with lap time deleted for track limits, certainly looked to be pushing this car, the 51 Spirit of Race. But with the last effort and a bit of a stretch away from Alessandro Pierguidi, the task became just a little too much for the number 11 car. They would finish 0.043 of a second back from this man. World champion Alessandro Pierguidi is on GT pole for the 4 Hours of Buriram 2019.
And that is the qualifying for GT, of course, this year. We've seen the GT class go out first. The LMP2s and LMP3s will be out in this slightly delayed qualifying session. As you're probably looking at your time, you're wondering how it started late. Well, there was an incident earlier with the number 7 Ikuriakos in free practice 2. Just quickly summing it up, that led to this being a later start for the qualifying session. But what a qualifying we've seen from GT. And as you can see, LMP2 and LMP3 cars getting ready in the pit lane right now. And this is going to be a huge fight.
It's going to be great fun, this one. It's we've got the cars coming out onto the apron now. The RC Bratislava there, car to the front. That is the rear of the Vipanisa Racing
Fixed
team.
up after a full flip in free practice one.
Looking less grazed and scratched than it was a couple of days ago. And Douglas Koo, had a wry smile on his face. But I think that, it's never nice when you're upside down in a race car, let me tell you that. And I have been upside down in a race car. But out they come, and this is where it's really going to kick off. The number 13 car are LMP3 Championship leaders, Polish flag team into Europol, and I'm sure it'll be Kuba Szymowski who's going to be out in that car. So who do we know is out there? The 2 United Autosports Ligier will be in the hands of Wayne Boyd. Kuba Szymowski is indeed in the 13 car. Phil Hansen will take on qualifying duties in the 22 LMP2 United car. Mathieu Lehay is in the 35 Panis Barthez Ligier in LMP2. Aidan Reid in the 36 Eurasia Motorsports LMP3 car. Stephanie Cox, we had talking to Nadia earlier, she will bring the 50 R24 car out into the fun. Colin Noble in the first of the Ikuriakos Nielsen racing cars. We'll see whether or not we see the 7. That's the 79 car. And this Fjordbach has been very much in the groove in the number 25 Algar Pro, their LMP2 AM effort. He will be out there again this time. Pole sitter last time out in LMP3, the 65 car will be out for Vipanisa Racing in the hands of Nigel Moore. It is Harrison Newey in the 24 Algar Pro LMP2 car. Darren Burke, who was a standout talent in taking the win in LMP2 AM at the Fuji International Speedway. He is going to be out for the number 4 ARC Bratislava squad again this time out. We wait for the final 2 cars, one of which has just popped out. That is Guy Cosmo aboard the number 23 United Autosports car. Wait and see whether or not we might see the number 7 Ikuriakos Nielsen racing team emerge. They were in trouble in the free practice session earlier with a big impact with the barriers. Nick Adcock, we think, as a result of a puncture. But at the moment, Giovanni, we have 13 cars out on the circuit, 7 LMP3s at the moment, 6 LMP2 cars doing battle for their respective class poles, and 13 minutes left on the clock.
That's right. I think the 13 minutes is the most significant part, because once again, the same applies to those GT cars. Very small window to get out there, heat up your tires, and get a really good lap on a very slippy track. When I say slippy, I don't mean wet weather, I don't mean any way. I mean in the way the track is designed, as we've been watching for the last hour now. It's essentially, there are a lot of corners on this track which literally, as you put it, Graham, magnetize your car to the outside.
Well, we heard as well from a couple of the guys talking about the fact we've got MotoGP curbs here, lower curbs. That means that there's not as much to stop the cars from just drifting out. Frankly, under centrifugal force more than anything else. It's the simple mass of the car that drives them to the side. So they've got to be really careful of that. And believe you me, the eagle eyes of Eduardo Freitas will have spotted what I've just spotted there, which is the 13 car running wide, and that I'm sure will not count this time around. We are under 12 minutes to go, and we're getting to the stage where lap times are coming in. Phil Hansen is the first to show. He comes through with a 1:27.191. That is not quite as quick as we've seen in qualifying so far. And there's Fjordbach.
I was just about to say, he was putting in some lightning sectors. He's now topping the grid with 1:26.854.
The first man into the 1:26 in qualifying. We've got one of the United cars on pit lane. I think that's the 23 car. It is. Guy Cosmo's come out and straight back in again. So it's 1, 2, 3. Indeed, that 13 car, as I said it would be, has had the lap time deleted. So the lead car in LMP3 at the moment is another United Autosports car, Wayne Boyd in the number 2 car. Algar Pro, it's 1-2. Harrison Newey just pips his teammate by just a smidge under a tenth of a second. So 24 from 25, then the 22 United Autosports car, then the Panis Barthez competition car in the hands of Mathieu Lehay. That's the top 4 all in LMP2. Then Nigel Moore goes to the top, 1:30.467 from Wayne Boyd, so Vipanisa Racing from United Autosports. Then we've got the Eurasia Motorsport car of Aidan Reed, then Kyriakos Nielsen Racing, 79 in the hands of Colin Noble. That's the top 4 in LMP3 with just 10.5 minutes to go, and Darren Burke popping up into 4th in the ARC Bratislava number 4.
Well, Nigel Moore, of course, has been as fast as ever this season. Viper Nisa Racing currently topping the LMP3, as Graham pointed out. This would, if they can hold it for 10 minutes, be their 2nd consecutive pole. What a story that would be for the Malaysian teams.
Yeah, it would indeed. Briefly, by the way, we saw young Phil Hansen to the top of timing and scoring with a 1:26.561. That lap, though, has been deleted for track limits. So Harrison Newey retains his pole position, his provisional pole position, as we're a third of the way through this session now, and he's going quicker. Anders Fjordbach has not improved last time around, so I think that gap may well be about to stretch out. But we know as well that Phil Hansen, if he can keep his thinking head on and just keep an eye on those track limits, will be significantly quicker than his current lap time, which is now 7/10 from the provisional pole. That comes courtesy of an improvement from Harrison Newey. He's now 4/10 clear with a 1:26.425. That plays Anders Fjordbach's 1:26.854. The only 2 men at the moment into the 1:26s, with Darren Burke looking the man most likely to improve. He does, and he puts the ARC Bratislava car second with a 1:26.787.
Well, I was looking for that in some respects. ARC Bratislava, they would absolutely love to be in the top row of the grid, the front row of the grid, hopefully pole. Very fast from Darren Burke. I think so far looking very good. 3 cars now into the 1:26s.
Absolutely. LMP3, by the way, is a dogfight too. There's a 4-man battle at the moment for pole position. 5-man battle for pole position because Matt Bell pops to the top in a 1:30.197 in the number 3 United Autosports car. Ahead now of Wayne Boyd to the 2 United cars, 1-2. Then Nigel Moore, then Colin Noble, Aidan Reed in the mix as well. The spread between the 3 of them, 0.3 of a second. Harrison Newey, by the way, is blitzing around here. 2 purple sector times for the number 24 car, and he's going to hack more off this one. It's a 1:26.1 now, 0.6 of a second clear of Darren Burke, as Anders Fjordbach and Phil Hansen both pit their cars from 3rd and 4th on the grid respectively. They're both going to want to see more speed out of those cars. Colin Noble pops up, 2nd position now in LMP3, so it's changing by the moment, by the sector, by the lap, and with 8 minutes to go, there's plenty more that this 15-minute qualifying session could still dole out. Guy Cosmo, by the way, is now back out on track and does set a representative lap time. We're back up to the top 6, all being LMP2 cars. Should say, by the way, that number 7 car has not made it out onto track after that incident. I don't think will now figure in qualifying. But Harrison Newey is going quicker again. This could be a sub-1:26 lap if he manages to keep up this momentum. So 1:26.197, the moment plays 1:26.787. Harrison Newey is purple again in Sector 1, again in Sector 2. And this looks to me like
it's going to break 1:26 and get into the 1:25s.
It could very easily do that if he can maintain his momentum through tricky Sector 3 to complete the lap. Keep it all on the grey stuff, not attract the attention of race control by doing anything awry. And that, I think, would be putting a tin lid on qualifying for the overall pole here.
Well, talking about that, we've had 2 cars now, Eurasia Motorsport and Panis Partez competition with abuse of track limits. Once again at turn 1, very difficult corner to control.
It's about carrying that momentum through, but one man who's managed to do it was indeed Harrison Newey. We saw him talking to Nadia earlier. He has broken 1:26. It's a 1:25.955. Spectacular stuff. He's going quicker again. He's already 0.8 clear of the next car in the order, the ARC Bratislava car, in the hands of Darren Burke. That car, by the way, leads the LMP2 AM pole contest here, but that's not what this is all about. This is all about getting to the top of the order, getting that pole position, getting the point that goes with it. Harrison said about how important they saw that as being, but front row stuff. But Harrison Newey, 21 dead almost, in pursuit of an even lower lap time, 1:25.955 as Darren Burke.
ARC Bratislava in the pits, as you can see, getting a bit of a tyre change. 6 minutes left on the clock, which means, and there's roughly about 3 laps left for all of these guys, but it's good to see so far that the stories that we were talking about in the lead up to this qualifying session have actually been translated by these teams. Algarve Pro Racing and ARC Bratislava especially making a huge run in LMP2 under the stewardship of Harrison Newey and Darren Burke respectively. United Autosports, of course, the current championship leaders in LMP2, currently in 4th with Philip Hansen, and Philip Hansen's put in a pretty fast lap.
Philip Hansen now is indeed 4th, but going quicker than he's been before on this lap. I think we'll see an improvement there. Not quite an improvement that time around from Harrison Newey. It's a 1:26.0. That is, by the way, the second fastest lap of the session. So he's got the top 2 times here. This is 79 car in the hands of Colin Noble. That's another quick tyre change there with 5 minutes to go. He thinks there's more to come there. He's actually on pole position now with the 1:30.123. So Colin Noble has leapfrogged both of the United Autosports car.
And here he is.
Indeed, this would be by far the best qualifying position we've seen from Mercurio Nielsen in the Asia Le Mans series. Cracking stuff.
Exactly what we were talking about. This is the round 3 of the Asian Le Mans series this year. For these other teams to be stepping up, and it looks like
an astonishing lap from Philip Hansen. The gap now for pole position, because it still isn't Philip Hansen, is 1/1000th of a second. 1:25.955 plays 1:25.956. Where on earth did that come from? And here's the good news for United Autosports. He's going faster. He's got a green first sector. No matter how faster that is, that would be, if he can maintain that momentum, a pole position lap from Phil Hansen, if he can carry on this momentum, because even if it's just a couple of thousandths, that means he's quicker than a thousandths behind.
Exactly.
So it is going to be all about this lap and possibly the one after this one, but that's a cracking effort from Phil Hansen as Harrison Newey pits the car. Is that going to be for a last-minute tyre change another go at it, or did he think he'd done enough? Has he just been wrong-footed? There are tyres ready for the number 24 car, and they are going to be going on. He's going to go for another crack at this as well. So has Phil Hansen had the best of these tyres, the set that's on here now? He's coming through any moment now, and stays second.
Well, it's just too close to call right now in LMP2, and I just wonder sometimes, Graham, if these guys actually have our commentary in their helmets, because literally United Autosports have kicked into gear as soon as we said that they were down in 4th on the standing.
Well, indeed, and also kicked into gear in LMP3, because we saw the 79 car come down pit road. Back to the top goes United, not just the top, but second as well. Wayne Boyd and Matt Bell this time. 1:29.740 from Wayne Boyd, a great lap in an LMP3 car. A 1:30.120. That is just 0.03 of a second quicker than Colin Noble's best effort. So the gaps here are absolutely tiny. So it's 1,000th of a second separates pole overall from second position. The 24 Algarve Pro Racing team in the hands of Harrison Newey, that 24 car, is pole position by a single 1,000th of a second from Phil Hansen.
That's unbelievable.
Absolutely staggering. In the 22 car, he completes the front row at the moment with just 2.5 minutes to go. Behind that, by the way, Darren Burke sits third. He's a full second back. No, sorry, apologies. He's a quarter of a second back because he's just improved his time. So Darren Burke is not out of this hunt yet. In LMP3, well, it's all at the moment about, well, a gaggle of British drivers. There are 4 British drivers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then an Australian. They've got our flag in the corner, so that counts. But Wayne Boyd from Nigel Moore, Matt Bell, Colin Noble, Aidan Reid, then Kuba Shimosky, remember the championship leader, in 6th position. Stefano Cox is in 7th position in class. This is cracking stuff. And still the quick lap times are coming in. Darren Burke looks set to improve this time around. This guy Cosmo lifts the number 23 car up into 5th position in the order. There's improving sector times coming from 4th placed Anders Fjordbach. He might improve here this time around. But Nigel Moore has now popped up into 2nd position in LMP3. He splits United Autosports pair this time around. So it's now Wayne Boyd from Nigel Moore from Colin Noble. As Colin Noble has just improved and has gone 3rd, so Matt Bell cycles back down the order as the 2 guys who had been behind him, Nigel Moore and Colin Noble, both improve. This is an all-out battle for pole position in LMP3. It literally could not be closer in LMP2, and Darren Burke is looking to see whether or not he can make it a 3-car battle, because he's just taken another couple of tenths off his time. He's now less than 2 tenths off pole position. It is 24 from 22 from 4, and the gap between the two of them is 2 tenths of a second. The gap between the top two is 1/1000th of a second.
And as you can see now, shots from the pit lane and the Algarve Pro Racing. And that was Mark Patterson just watching the screens with the rest of the team mechanics and engineers. And remember, they were absolutely elated at their win in Fuji. It really kicked off their campaign for this year. And now Harrison Newey, as Graham has pointed out, leading by just the tiniest margin. It has to be said, Harrison put in a fantastic lap, but United Autosports just bit back immediately with Philip Hansen. Not quite biting enough.
I didn't see it coming. We've got 10 seconds till the checkered flag comes out. That will be enough time for the first of the Algarve Pro cars to cross the line, and the second. So both of these cars in the hands of Harrison Newey, who, by the way, does improve his time. He edges away a tenth of a second there. Is that going to be enough? But is it going to be enough? Because behind him, Philip Hansen's put in the fastest first sector of the session, a lot quicker than we've seen from Harrison Newey. But Harrison Newey betters that.
He's still going.
So this really has been a dogfight between these two young English drivers. Harrison Newey in the number 24 car at the moment holds the advantage by 0.138 of a second. That was answered by Philip Hansen with the fastest first sector on what will be his last lap of this session, but then beaten by another tenth by Harrison Newey. So Newey has really risen to the challenge here. Just want to keep an eye too on what's going on in LMP3, because Kuba Shimoski has just popped up in third from absolutely nowhere.
Well, that's unbelievable from the LMP3 championship leaders right now. They have been languishing in sixth, and now with a final burst are up into third.
But I think we're going to be celebrating here at pole position, which looks to me to be heading towards the Algarve Pro team. He's due across the line. There is no improvements from Philip Hansen on that lap, but I think there's going to be one from Harrison Newey. Already pole position is in his grasp with the 25.818. I think he's going to be going considerably faster. It's a 125.571, almost 4 tenths of a second quicker than the best time managed by Philip Hansen, who will not be happy, I think. He thought that might have been there. But so that's a cracking qualifying performance from Harrison Newey. Knows this track, of course, has been here before. Darren Burke is going to come home and does third on the grid, so on the second row of the grid, alongside the second United Autosports car. Also home now are all the battling LMP3s. It is going to be the number 2 United Autosports Ligier JSP3 of Wayne Boyd that brings back pole position for them. He gets that by a single tenth of a second from Nigel Moore in the Viper Nisa Racing team. Pole last time, but it will be the front row in LMP3 for the 65 car. Then Kuba Shimoski and Colin Noble. Those two separated by less than a tenth as well. Cracking stuff, 15 minutes there.
And it has to be said that all of the stories that we were talking about have essentially now kicked off for the weekend. It could have been so close for a double pole, a consecutive pole, I should say, for Viper Nisa Racing. But Nigel Moore, when he found himself under the attack of the United Autosports, immediately bit back, as you would expect him to. But Harrison Newey and Philip Hansen, Graham, we've been talking about this now colossal battle between Algarve Pro Racing and United Autosports. Maybe United Autosports at the start of the season, after a great performance in Shanghai, in pretty much all the categories, classes they were racing in, thought this is going to be good. But then, of course, Algarve came back in Fuji, and now this is the important part. They've continued. They've picked up from where they've left off, and all of that rivalry that we were talking about in the studio just now, well, we just translated it into timings, and it came down at one point to 1/1000th of a second.
Absolutely amazing stuff. And by the way, another quick mention for Darren Burke, as unseen by me here. He managed to grab third, but improved on the last lap of the session to be just under 2 tenths back from the very highly rated Philip Hansen. Some great performances right up and down the field there, and some battling performances after a little bit of misfortune, perhaps with track limits from a couple of those cars. But at the end of it, Harrison Newey, I think the qualifying performance of his life so far. Philip Hansen will be disappointed, But actually, I think when he looks back at the times that were put in by his major competitor there, he'd be possibly more disappointed with himself for wasting one of the laps that could have actually been part of something that built.
It was unfortunate that we didn't get to see, of course, the number 7 car from Ikuri Acosta Nielsen get to qualifying. No real surprise. That was the car that essentially led to the delay in the start of the entire qualifying session for both, for all categories. So they'll probably be starting from the back of the grid if, of course, they can get that car ready before race day tomorrow. Race day tomorrow is going to be impressive. We'll get to your predictions of that later on. Right now, some of the other big names that we need to talk about. We were talking to Panis Barthez competition earlier. We were talking to Stephanie Cox as well. Stephanie Cox, of course, had a good run out. I think there was one lap that she got deleted. The rest of it was a very solid qualifying session.
Well, to talk about the kind of the level of competitiveness in that that's LMP3 class, we could go down now and actually watch. That's Harrison Newey just getting back. That's Andrea Pizzitola in the closer to us. With the facial fur, and Harrison obviously yet to take the helmet off, the Red Bull on the side there. The team that obviously, amongst other things, is the home for his father.
And there you go, just pointing out exactly how close those times were. I'm sure Harrison would have known about it anyway. And there is the rest of the team. That's Atatürk de Jong.
Yeah, absolutely. So all good stuff here from Algarve Pro. Fantastic stuff. This is...
What a talent Harrison Newey is.
It's developing into being just a hyper-competitive team. You know, a little team looked after by Stuart and Sam Cox, a husband and wife team from the UK, but living now out in the Algarve in Portugal.
There you go.
Which is exactly where this comes from. And they have developed a real name for themselves as the Algarve Pro team of producing really well-honed driver squads, and happy driver squads at that. This 2-car effort from them. Both of those teams were very much in contention. Wanted to say a quick word about LMP3, though, which is that the top 6 cars, all 6 of those were in the top 2 in LMP3 at some point in that session, and 3 of them led it. In fact, I think 4 of them may have led it. So that was truly competitive at LMP3, and this is a group that is coming together for something that could prove to be very, very special tomorrow at the race here at Buriram, and then when we get to the cauldron that is going to be Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia.
The Sepang International Circuit is built for competition, but we were talking about how this is a shorter track here at Buriram International, and looking at that, how close the LMP3 cars were, you're looking at a compressed field.
Yes.
Yep. When they get out there, it should be wheel-to-wheel racing.
It should be, and what it means as well is, of course, the traffic is more intense on a shorter track.
Yes.
You know, it's not quite small enough that you get dizzy, but it's not far off it.
Yeah.
But for me, this is where it's really coming to the boil. Very much at the point where you'd like it to come to the boil, where the real championship contending positions are going to be, going to be getting that compression that they require for the pressure you want to see these guys withstanding.
Yep.
What we want to do, though, is to hear from the man that put in, I think, the performance of the session across all 3 classes. Let's go down now where Nadia is with Harrison Newey.
The man who was in car number 24, Algarve Pro Racing car, of course, Harrison Newey. Oh, once again, we are speaking because you made pole position. Yeah. So, seems like that was a breeze for you?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a breeze. You know, I still had to push hard. On the last couple of laps, to be honest, I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what pole time was going to be, so I think I did it the lap before and had a couple of times that would have been pole. But I kept on pushing. It's coming to the last corner, and I just saw on the delta time that this is going to be a good one. So I didn't over push in the last corner, just brought it back, lost maybe a tenth or something, just to make sure I finished off the lap really clean and mega. I knew I didn't have to do an extra special time, so I had the comfort to do that, and brought it across the line. Lost a little bit, and yeah, P1, so I was happy with that.
You make it sound so easy because, yes, at a point you and Phil were neck and neck, and then you just kind of made the gap like further and further. That was...
Yeah, I mean, I knew we had it in the car. I knew straight away after the first couple of laps, we did one set of tyres, did a couple laps, but we went out on full fuel. So I knew as the fuel load came down, the car was going to get quicker. So I was happy when we came in for the second set. I just said, okay, I got 3 laps here. The fuel's going to come down. Second last or last is going to be the quickest, really low fuel, and it was. So yeah.
Fantastic. So pole position tomorrow. What does that mean for the team?
Yeah, I think the team were over the moon. They were playing games with me. I said on the in-lap, we pole, and they said, no, we're P2. So when I jumped out of the car and the cameras were on me, they were all going like, yeah, and I was like, no, I don't want to talk to you like I'm second. But then I came in, looked at the times, I was like, oh, we are P1. So, I think they're delighted, and they just like having fun.
Fantastic. So congratulations once again. All the best to you and the team tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
So you heard it from the man. Back to you guys in commentary.
Thanks, Nadia. The weekend started well for Spirit of Racing. It started very well for Algarve Pro. As you heard from Harrison Newey there, it wasn't a walk in the park at all.
No.
He didn't actually know at some points when he was going to be on pole, and even when he drove into the pits, he thought he was in second.
He did, and you saw that in the way in which the lap times came together. He was pushing throughout that entire 15-minute qualifying session. But, the whole thing came together there with the LMP cars on track.
Electric.
Really exciting 15 minutes of action. And we can have a quick look back at that in just a few moments. 15 minutes around Buriram Circuit and what entertainment we got. The combined field of LMP3 and LMP2 cars out for 15 minutes of action, led out by the championship leaders in LMP3, the Inter-Europol team from Poland. They would figure late on in the upper positions in LMP3, but early on it was others that would come to the fore. LMP2 and LMP3 makes for a great mix here. United Autosports as well as the Polish team, the 13 car. It would be the United Autosports pair in LMP3 that would come to the fore in the early parts of the session. Panisa Racing and Nigel Moore led early and would come back into it late on, but would never quite produce the results that we saw from Nigel at the Fuji Speedway last time out. 65 car though will feel lucky to be in the race after a roll in testing yesterday. United Autosports though will have their dander up. Both cars very much in contention. The number 2 car in the hands of Wayne Boyd for this session led pretty much all of it. Was pipped just once or twice through the session. Darren Burke in the number 4 ARC Bratislava Ligier, the LMP2 leading car. Again, always looked in contention and closed the gap down right at the end of the session to just a couple of tenths off second place and a front row start for the Slovakian flagged team. But Algarve Pro, both cars in contention, certainly in free practice with Anders Fjordbach. Didn't quite replicate that form in the AM crew car, but in the pro car, Harrison Newey, with one of the qualifying performances of the season so far, had the hammer down early on, kept it down. I think they're going to have to remove that with some kind of industrial machinery from the accelerator being nailed to the floor here. He just kept producing quick lap times, purple sectors, and I think he surprised himself with the pace they found in that car. And as we heard from Nadia just a little earlier, didn't really know he was on pole position till he got out of the car, was greeted by teammate Andrea Pizzitola, and just a moment or two later by Atidut Jeong, who completes the trio here. Great performance from Harrison, great performance from the Algarve Pro team. And for me, there is Atidut Jeong. That's our trio. Pole position for the number 24 Algarve Pro, Ligier Judd.
Possibly the best qualifying session we've seen so far?
In this class, definitely. And I think Philip Hansen will have felt confident coming into this session. I think he'll be a little bit demoralised.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Have Algarve Pro Racing done enough to get into the psyche and into the mindset of United Autosports?
Well, I think they've certainly got into their heads that the United guys will feel more confident that they've got two closer to pro drivers. United will also feel confident, by the way, that they've got a fantastic performance coming together in LMP3, where both of their cars were very much in contention. That's a title battle they want to win. Wayne Boyd and Matt Bell and the two of them. We've got Wayne Boyd, though, having set that pole position after a great battle. It's down now with Nadia talking in pit lane.
Yes, indeed. Wayne Boyd is here with me, fastest in LMP3. Congratulations. Was that easy or tough for you?
It was pretty tough, to be honest. Obviously, the conditions here, it's obviously very, very hot. Obviously, under a bit of pressure to try and get pole. Obviously, we're trying to get as many points as possible for the championship. Another point there with pole, so that'll fairly help us for tomorrow's race as well.
Yeah, speaking about that, so 1 point in the bag for you guys, but I guess how important is that 1 point in terms of the championship run?
Well, if it comes down to 1 point, it's all that matters, isn't it, at the end of the day? So every point counts. We had a disappointing race in Fuji, so obviously every point that we can get is it's all going to add up.
Nice to know that. And you were saying that the temperatures in the car, of course, it's hot here, but we were racing at about 4 or 5 o'clock. Tomorrow, the race is going to be right when the sun is up in the sky. So do you foresee it going to be tougher for the drivers?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough for everybody. When you're on track, you actually don't feel it quite as much because obviously you're concentrating so much on driving. It's just when you're coming in and out of the pits a couple of times in qualifying and you're sitting and obviously the engine right behind you, that's whenever you get really hot. But it'll be fine. Obviously some people might struggle more than others, but it is what it is. We got to go and do a good job.
Well, just another day in the office for you guys, right? So congratulations, all the best for tomorrow. So there you have it. That was Wayne Boyd who made pole for LMP3. And guys, that was it. I guess we know how the grid is going to be looking like tomorrow. We're one step closer to race day. That's going to be happening, well, coincidentally, also on Thailand's National Children's Day. So we're expecting a huge crowd, a massive turnout, and things are going to get exciting on and off the track. So be sure you join us live at 11:15 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll be right here reporting to you, okay? So till then, I'm Nadia Nash. Thank you so much for watching.